Well done for doing the second set of questions. Maybe you felt that these were a little bit harder. If that's the case, good. I want to challenge you. I want you to think. What is the correct order? How can I build a sentence in the correct way? What is the subject, the verb, and the object? In other words, who is the person doing something? What is it that they are doing? And what happens then after the verb? The subject, the verb, and the object. Now, my answers are suggested answers. These are the answers in which I have chosen what I think is the best subject, verb, and object, which makes sense to me. Okay? So that's one way that my answer might be different to yours. The other way that my answer might be different is that I've chosen different vocabulary to put those elements together. So how I've joined the subject to the verb and then the verb to the object. But I want you to look at my answers, listen to my explanations, and see if you agree or disagree with me. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so let's have a look at those answers. Question 1. Any missing payments must, as soon as possible, be paid by you. That clause in the middle, as soon as possible, it has the effect of stopping and starting the reader. Any missing payments must stop. As soon as possible, stop. Be paid by you. And that habit of putting clauses in the middle of sentences does stop the reader, and it stops the flow. So when we're thinking about what should go into the correct order, or what the correct order should be, we should think about moving that clause either to the beginning or to the end. Let's have a look at my suggested answer, which is this. You must pay any missing payments as soon as possible. Here I've chosen the subject carefully. This is you. This is the reader. I'm talking to the subject directly. Now I'm telling the reader exactly what they have to do. You must pay. That's the verb and the subject right at the beginning of the sentence. Fantastic writing technique. And then what? You must pay any missing payments as soon as possible. Much better order, much better flow, much easier to read. For number 2, keeping up to date with changes to law is a responsibility of yours. Here, behind the sentence, I get the idea that this sentence is telling me to do something. So I'm going to choose my subject carefully. I'm going to say, it is your responsibility to keep up to date with changes to the law. So this is my subject, verb, and object. The subject, it is your responsibility. The verb, to keep up to date. And the object, with changes to the law. You can see I'm talking about that subject, verb, object because that really is the right order. Once you work out what is the subject, what is the verb, what is the object, then the sentence just makes a lot more sense. And it's easier to read. For number 3, sick pay will only be paid by us when we receive the correctly filled out form. I've only made a small change here at the beginning of the sentence. And it's to correct the order in that first part. And that is, we will only pay sick pay when we receive the correctly filled out form. So it's just making a small change at the beginning of that sentence. For number 4, the car, before driving it away, it should be properly checked by you. Now, once again, just like question 1, we have that clause which stops the reader and then starts and then stop again. It actually stops the reader from reading. But then afterwards, you can probably see that there's a grammar mistake. You can see that it says it, and it shouldn't say it. So did I make a mistake? No, I didn't, because this is an example of a real mistake. Very often, mistakes which are made very often because people use clauses. So they start the sentence, they have a clause, And then after the clause, which is an extra bit of information, they then forget what the beginning of the sentence said grammatically. And then they just continue the sentence and they forget how to join the parts of the sentence together. This is a real writing problem. So it's something that you should be able to or should learn to identify in your own writing. But okay, back to the subject, verb and object. I think it should be this. You should properly check the car before driving it away. Once again, clear subject, you. Clear verb, should properly check. And then an object, the car, before driving it away. For number 5, when payment for the booking is received by us, only then will the reservation be complete. Now I've made a few changes here. The reservation will be complete when we receive a payment for the booking. For me, this order is the best order, and I'll explain why, because question 5 is similar to question 3. In that you can see these are sentences which use when. So what we have here is a sentence made up of 2 parts. The first part is called the main clause, and the second part is called the subordinate clause. And in each case, the subordinate clause starts with when. So for number 3, the main clause is we will only pay sick pay. And for number 5, the main clause is the reservation will be complete. Now, when we're writing a sentence using a main clause and a subordinate clause, of course, we can change the order. So the subordinate clause can go before the main clause. That's not a problem. So you can say, when we receive the correctly filled out form, number 3, we will pay sick pay. We have to make a small change there. Or for number 5, when we receive a payment for the booking, the reservation will be complete. So we can say that. But for the purposes of clear communication, I would always recommend putting the main clause first. So putting the main idea first and then the condition or the result or whatever it might be. And that way, I think, personally, it's a better form of communication to the reader. Okay, guys, great work with this. Please have a look at the extra exercises for each unit as I add them on. There are some extra exercises for units 3 and 4, so please go and check those out as well.